What's up, guys? Matt here with Matco Metalworks, and we have been extremely busy in the shop, and unfortunately haven't had time to get any videos made the past probably a week or two. Just too busy, and that's one thing I've noticed. We've started making some YouTube videos in the past month or two, and it takes a lot of time to not only record them, but the biggest thing is trying to edit them and make quality videos. And so I don't want to just put a bunch of stuff out there that doesn't help anybody, but I want to put some, make some really good quality videos that are useful and actually teach somebody something. So, YouTube wasn't, when I started this 20 years ago, YouTube wasn't around. You didn't have videos like this to go look up and learn how to do stuff. It just wasn't there. And so you kind of just had to learn on your own, trial and error. But we want to do some quality videos, and so what I'm going to do today is we're going to talk about basic setup of a MIG welder. And this is not an entry-level welder, but it'll help you in getting started, what comes with a welder, how to hook it up, how to get started with it, and how to look at the graph that comes with the welder to get you to a starting point, and then you'll adjust from there. So let's get started. So with this welder, this is a Miller Multimatic 215, and personally I don't consider this an entry-level welder just because of the cost of it. That of course depends on how much you're using it. If you're doing 10, 15, 20 hours of welding a week, then you need something like this. If you're you're just a hobbyist, you're doing some metal art, you're doing maybe a repair or a small project on the weekend, then an entry-level welder to me is what you buy. Any welding supply store will sell them, but more of a homeowner is going to go to Lowe's or Home Depot, somewhere like that, and buy a Lincoln 125 or a 140 or something like that, and you're in the $300 to $500 range. This welder here is going to run you in the $1,200 to $1,500 range, depending on where you get it, what you get with it. You can put a TIG rig on this, you can stick weld, you can MIG weld, you can run stainless. It does not do aluminum, but you can do all those processes with it. And the good thing about this, and the reason we have it and the reason we use it, is this is a multi-process welder, and it'll also do, it'll run off 110 and 220. So you can actually take, it's currently got the 110 plug on it, but it'll actually switch over and run on the 220 as well. So with the Multimatic 215, it's a multi-process welder. It'll do, like I said, stick, MIG, TIG. You can run on 110 or 220. That's the reason these welders have become so popular. We have this model. We've also got a Lincoln 210 MP, very similar, just in the Lincoln brand. Runs on 110 or 220. This one here, the Miller, has arrows, so it's very user-friendly, easy to disconnect and connect, each of the plugs. It's got a 4-prong end on it that's hardwired into the machine. You don't have to do anything with that. It comes this way. There's an arrow here and an arrow on here. Just line those up, push it in till it stops, thread your little connector on, and you're ready to go. You want to hook up 220. We run 220 in the shop a lot. We bought this mainly for on-site stuff, for doing handrails and so forth. I can run it pretty easy off my my Ranger GXT mobile unit. Same thing, 2 arrows, line them up, push it together, and we're running 220. And it automatically knows when you turn the machine on what it's got on it. It already knows, it registers the power. You can change your settings. You get, you can run a little hotter, get a little bit thicker metal. You can run, more heat, weld thicker material, multi-pass, whatever you need to do when you're running on the 220. So when you get your machine, this is what it's basically going to look like. Like I said, Multimatic 215. This is what it's going to look like on the front. This is hardwired. This already comes attached. I don't think I had to attach this. I could be wrong. I don't remember. It's been a while. If so, there's just one little bolt to take out, and that comes out. Running it on standard MIG, that's going to be your positive. Of course, your negative is going to be your ground clamp. But we got some extra tips and stuff in here, and it's actually got a slot here. This is to keep your extra so you don't lose it. Of course, you can imagine these are probably easy to lose. So it actually slips down in there. It's got a little Velcro. You can actually slip that down in there, and it'll set in. It's got like a little ring down the bottom. It'll hold your extra. This will be on your cord, and therefore you won't lose it. So this is what it looks like when you get it, and then you also get your. We'll just take that out now, just so it's not in the way. Then you're going to get your gun, which is going to look like this. So of course it's going to be wound up, and this one is used, of course. So you're going to get this, and it's very simple to install. This is exactly how it comes. May not have the tips and stuff on there, but you get my point. So what you're going to do, there's a receiver part in here, and let me just make sure you can see this. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert this through the front of the machine along with this little wiring connector. This is hardwired into your gun. Just take this and feed this through the hole in the front. Just grab that, and then this part here is going to go right in. There's a slot there. There's a little Allen screw that tightens that all up. And you're going to slide that in. It'll go any way you want. There's no specific way for that to go. It's just a round hole. You're going to slide that in, and there's a rubber seal, and what it's going to do, that's going to actually seal where your gas comes through the machine and out through your gun. That's where it's coming in at. So you have to get that in far enough to make sure you get that O-ring there to seal. So once you get it there and it stops right there, you're just going to tighten this little lug nut here. Make sure you push that in, tighten that up just snug, and you're ready to go. Then you've got a little 2-prong connector here. It's going to go down on the bottom, and just like anything else, it's got slots on it, so it kind of makes it easy for you to line up. You just have to line up the correct slot, because there's only one way that'll go in there. And you just tighten the little thumb screw, tuck that wire away, and your gun is now connected. So next up, even more simple, is your ground clamp. This is a twist. You just insert this and twist it. I think it's maybe a 1/4 turn or something like that. I'll show you here in a minute. And then you've got your ground clamp on this end. Very easy to use, very user friendly. Lay that to the side. And you see there your connection, your negative. You're just going to insert this here. It's got a little piece here, a little notch. You're going to line that up with, pointing straight up, line that up with the notch in there, twist it or push it in and twist it. It's about 180 degrees maybe, and that locks in place. We use this because you can get smaller rolls, little 1-2 pound rolls, but then you're changing them all the time. And so we like to put this in here, that way it lasts a while. So you've got this threaded screw that comes on here. Just take that off, very simple to do. And we always put ours the same way, with a wire coming around and coming out the top. So your wire is going to come out the top. So you've got it here, just going to slip this over. And it does have a little piece on the back you have to line up with this hole. So the hole's on the front, so it makes it easy for you to see. Line that up, slide that on, and you can actually start this on here just to hold it so it doesn't fall off. But you need to have a pair of pliers with you. And what you're going to do, you don't want any bends in this wire, no kinks, because it won't go through your liner in your gun. So you just want to snip off anything that's bent on the end. And then this piece here is actually what holds the tension on your rollers. You've got a drive roller here. This is what feeds. When you pull the trigger, that's what feeds it. This turns. I'll show you in just a minute when we power this up. This actually turns and actually feeds it. So you've got a little hole right at the very back. You're just going to feed this in, and you'll see it come out right there. So as you can see, just feed it in the back. There's a little hole there, and you'll see it come out on top of the drive roller right there, and it lines up. It's actually got a little groove in it. When you push this down, in just a minute I'll show you, when you push that down, that's what locks that wire in place. And when you pull your trigger, that's what turns this and makes it feed and push it through that gun or through the liner and come out the gun. And I'll show you all that in just a second. But go ahead and feed that in until it lines up. Sometimes you might have to take a screwdriver if you can't get your finger in there. Take a screwdriver and line it up. That's the end of your liner. That goes all the way down through your gun or your cord into your gun and out the end. And so that liner is actually what holds that wire inside and protects everything from getting damaged. But so you'll take that, get it in there, flip the top down. This one's spring loaded. A lot of them aren't, but this one is spring loaded, which I like. Take it, flip it over, flip this little piece up, and you're locked in place. Now this does have different settings on it depending on what kind of wire you're using, whether it's stainless, flux core, mild steel. It's got different settings on here for your tension. And I'm not sure if this has got, some of them have a tension guide on there. This one does not. But sometimes it'll tell you, like right now it's set on 2. And sometimes it'll have a guide on here to tell you what different wires, what number you need to be on for what wire you're using. So we've got the roll of wire installed. It's on the welder. It's set. It's ready to go. We haven't fed it through the gun, through the liner yet, but we'll get there in just a minute. What we need to do now is get our gas hooked up. Now, standard, you're going to run 75-25. You can rent these, you can lease these, you can buy these. Just depends what your purpose is, how much you're doing. We have both, actually. We've got a couple small tanks that we own. We bought them. Mainly the small tanks we use when we're traveling, we're on the road doing repairs, whatever. And then the big tanks like these are the biggest ones you can get. We use these. They're on a lease program or rental program through Airgas or Roberts Oxygen or National Welders, whoever you use. And they're pretty reasonable, actually. It's not much to rent these for a year, and then you just swap them out and you pay for whatever the gas to swap them every time they come pick them up, give you a new one. So we're going to take this cap off. This is the way it comes. Sometimes they're kind of snug. You might have to tap them with a crescent wrench or something. They get kind of rusty in there and get water in them. But you get that cap off, and then I'll show you how to hook up your regulator and explain what the purpose of the gas is. You got the top off. Like I said, very simple. Take it off. Sometimes they get a little rust in them. You can see it's actually rusty there. Just take them and just tap them around the edge, loosen them up, and break that rust, and you can get them off fairly easy. If you have to, if they're that stubborn, they've got slots in them. You can take a screwdriver or a crescent wrench or a standard wrench, box open end, whatever wrench, put it in there and just pry on it just a little bit, and you can actually see where people have done it. Just get stubborn, basically. But next up is your flow regulator. And they make all different kinds of these. You can get cheap ones, expensive ones, but I would recommend spending a little bit of money because it is worth it. You can get cheap ones, they crack, they break, they just don't work and just don't hold up. So next thing, the way you put your tank, I like to be able to look at the welder on the front and be able to see my gauge and not have it around here, turned around backwards. So pay attention when you're putting your tank on where, or depending on what you have. Some of these, they just go straight out. They, depends on what brands you get. They're facing different ways. But this one, the threaded end here needs to be facing to the left if you're looking at the welder. And that way when you mount it, you can see what your tank pressure is, how much you've got in your tank, and what your reading is for your argon flow or your PSI for your gas flow. So what we're gonna do is just take this. These are brass. You have to be careful. Remember not to over tighten these things. We're gonna go ahead and put this on here, and I'll show you. There's a little cord that comes with the welder. So just take your crescent wrench. Best thing to use, keep these around. And all you're gonna do is just push down on it, and you get it kind of snug, and then just leave it. And then what you'll do, you've got a little rubber hose. It's got brass ends on it. One end's gonna hook to the back of the welder where it tells you exactly where to put it for the gas. And then the other one's gonna go in the bottom of your regulator. So same thing, it's brass, be careful with it, don't over tighten it. Same thing, just take a crescent wrench and snug it up. Now, something I will tell you, we're getting ready to power this up so we can get the wire going, and I'll show you exactly how those drive rollers work. Just got these kind of hanging here out of the way for now. So we're all hooked up, got the gas hooked up. I'll show you how to set that in a minute, and we'll get the unit powered up. But one thing about this, when you're running on 110, a lot of times you'll notice that standard drop cord won't work. So this is a 10 gauge drop cord. As you notice, it's extremely thick. It's not your standard drop cord. And you can use these. They work a lot better when you're running on the 110. Of course, if you're running the 220, just use a standard 220 drop cord or plug it into your 220 outlet. But we need this, out in the middle of the shop somewhere. So of course that's not going to, plug directly to a wall. So get yourself a heavy duty. Like I said, this is a 10 gauge drop cord. It will work a lot better. You'll notice it won't overheat, won't trip breakers using just a standard drop cord. So we're going to go ahead and plug this in, and we'll get it fired up. Okay, so we're all powered up, got our juice, and we're ready to turn it on. This particular machine, it's got a sticker on the top, makes it, pretty simple. There's a switch, it's an on-off switch right here. It tells you it's got an arrow pointing. They like arrows, so take that and just flip the top of that switch up, and you'll see it lights up the front of the machine. Not making any noise yet. Most welders have a fan. This one will come on when you start actually welding, and it'll cut off maybe a minute or two or something like that, 30 seconds after you stop welding. It'll run just long enough to cool it down, and then it'll cut back off. But so we're powered up, and what I wanted to show you, first thing you have to do is, of course, you don't want your gas turned on, so we're not going to turn that on yet because you don't want to waste that as you feed all this wire down through your liner. So we're going to get this cord out of the way. We're a little jumbled up here, but get these out of the way. And what you want to do, you hear the fan come on. I didn't mean to, but I actually hit the trigger, and you hear the fan come on, so it thinks it's ready to weld. It's going to get warm, so that fan is going to cool that machine down or keep it cool. So one thing that I like to do, anytime I'm feeding wire from the machine through my gun out to here, of course I want to take my tip off, take the nozzle off. Makes it easier for the wire to come out. I want to keep it as straight as I can. And what I'm going to do, we're on 195 on the wire speed, that's good. So I'm just going to pull the trigger, and you see it's got a slow start on it, but you hear that? So now it's running, it's feeding it through. So you just keep feeding it, keep running it through there, and here there it goes. So you just saw it come out, and just like I said, you always take the tip off and take that nozzle off, because it makes it a lot. Take it and thread that on, and then just put the nozzle on. This is a slip-on. They make screw-on ones as well, but this one just slips on. Push it till it stops, and then you're good to go. So you've got your wire is on your roll. It's started, you fed it through, it's come out, it's gone all the way down through your liner and out your gun, and you're ready to go. So you can go ahead and close this down. We'll open that back up when I show you the graph on there. But what I want you to look at now is this. I'll turn it a little bit so you can see it better. So you've got two different gauges on this flow meter. What you're seeing here, when I open this tank, you'll see this needle. It's on 0 now. It'll pop up, and it'll go to, I don't know, maybe 1,000 or something. I don't know how much this one's got in it, but that's going to tell you what's inside this tank. That way you can keep track of it. You can look at it to see when you need to order a tank or to go swap out a tank, whichever one you do. Then you've got another regulator here where it's got a free floating ball that floats inside this clear tube, and that's going to tell you your PSI on what you've got coming out going into your welding machine. So what you want to do, this actually controls that. You have no control over this. That just tells you what, like I said, what's in the tank. So when I turn this on, I'm gonna turn it left to open it. So this tank's really full. We're at almost 2,500 on the tank, which is normal for this size. So it's a brand new tank. I never open these all the way. Normally halfway or something like that is all we ever do. You don't need to turn them things wide open. You don't need to crank down on them when you tighten them to close them. Just nice and snug like anything else on this. So open that up, you're about halfway. And then in order to find your setting for your flow meter, what I'll do is I'll just close that all the way so it's on 0. So you're gonna have to turn off your wire feed. Otherwise, every time I pull the trigger, see my wire, it's just gonna come out and I'm just gonna waste wire, or I'm gonna have to roll it back up. So what you're gonna wanna do is just flip your little lever over. That spring-loaded piece is gonna pop up. Just roll that back in. Now I can pull this trigger and nothing happens. It's spinning, but nothing's feeding out. So I have no flow. Like I said, I turned it all the way to the right. It's closed, it's turned off like a water spigot. I'm gonna pull the trigger and I'm gonna open that up until I see that ball start to move. So that ball is gonna move. When I pull that trigger, it's gonna go up and show me what my PSI is. You've got a good view there of the flow regulator tube. It's a clear tube. Some of them maybe have a little different style, but this one is I like this. This is actually very easy to read. This is a Profax, I think it is. So what I'm gonna do is I'll pull the trigger and you'll see that little ball move. See, and it kind of floats there until the pressure releases. So you see that ball going up and down? Well, there's little numbers on the side. You've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And that's telling you the PSI, or the CFM, I guess, the airflow. So CFM. And what you're gonna do, generally, we're gonna run this about 20. So you're about right there. This here controls it. So you're turning right, you're completely off. So if I go right, I pull the trigger, you're hearing nothing coming out of this, and you're not gonna see that ball move. So as I hold the trigger and I start to crack this open really slow, see that ball move? So the more I open it, the higher that goes, and you can hear it inside coming out of the gun. But what you want to do is just get that to where you pull the trigger and it sets about 20. And that's where you're going to want to run. Now, if you're outside or you're got the doors open and there's a little wind blowing, you may want to jack that up just a little bit. But standard, a good place to start is going to be about 20 CFM. Okay, so now that we've got our wire on, it's fed in, we've got our gas set, our gas is on, our CFM set at 20. Now we need to kind of get a baseline for where we want our voltage and our wire speed to be. So to make it very easy, most welding companies have come out, and this has been going on for a while, but most of them have this chart inside. So this is just going to show you step by step exactly what to do. So you got select process, turn on auto set, select wire, tungsten diameter, stick rod, whatever your type of welding you're doing, and select your material thickness. So if you do all that, what you're gonna do is you're gonna fold this down. This can be a little overwhelming, but if you break it down into the different sections, you've got, and I said this would not do aluminum. If you remember from the beginning of the video, I said it wouldn't do aluminum. You can actually do, you can put a spool gun on this. I forgot about it, but you can do spool. It's not a TIG, we'll do TIG steel, mild steel and stainless, but it won't do aluminum TIG. It's not a high frequency machine, won't do TIG, but you can put a spool gun on it. So what you're going to do, it's very simple actually. It's a lot of numbers, a lot of thicknesses, gauges, whatever, wire speeds, voltage, but we're going to just basically cut out all of this and stay right here in this box. So this is what you're looking at for steel wire welding, MIG or flux core. So first of all, you got to determine, are you doing steel or stainless? Well, you're doing steel, so you're in this box. So that takes out this whole bottom section because that's stainless. Then are you doing direct current, electrode positive or direct current electrode negative? Well, of course, your electrode is going to be your gun. So we're going to do standard welding, so it's going to be electrode positive. Well, then it's going to say, what gas are you using? C25, C100. So it depends what gas you've got. Then it's going to ask you, it's going to show you which wire. Well, the wire is going to be recommended the same for both of those gases. So now you've eliminated this whole bottom section because you're not doing electrode negative, you're doing electrode positive. You've got your gas, standard's going to be 75-25. Then you're going to go over here to the next block. You're just working your way over. You're going to be running 024, 030, 035, 024 for C100 gas, 030, 035. You're not going to be running anything over 035 through this welder. It's just not set up for it. You need a lot more heat than that. So if you're running, so this here, I think I mentioned it, this is 030 wire. So we're running 030 wire. So now we've gone from steel to electrode positive to our gas to the solid wire, which we're using. We're running 030. So now everything below that 030 is obsolete. Now you're just going to read, and this might make it easier. Trying to make it simple for you. So you're right there. So basically you can draw a line. Everything else is obsolete right now because I've determined that I've used the right wire, that gas, my wire size is 030. Now, all I have to do is, am I on 120 volt or 240 volt? So that's going to be your section here for 120, section here for 240. Well, we've got the 120 plug. We're going to run on standard 110 outlet. So we're 120 volts, 130 wire. So that eliminates all of this here. So now we're just working in this section right here. You have 24 gauge all the way to 1/4 inch material. If you are running the 240, like I said, you can run hotter, you can run thicker material. You're all the way from 24 gauge to 3/8 thick material, which is extremely thick stuff. So right now we're just going to concentrate on the 110. You've got 030 wire. We're just going to say we're using 14 gauge material. So if you don't know how to figure that out, you can get gauges, you can measure it. So we're just going to say we're on 14 gauge material, 030 wire. We're going to cross over, cross down, and your starting point is going to be 15.9 volts and 272 on the wire speed. Now that's just a starting point. Is that going to put out a good weld? It's possible, but every welder that comes out that looks like this comes off the line, it's going to weld different. Every single welder is going to be different. So that's just a starting point. That's what I call a baseline. And it basically gives you step by step exactly what to do, how to select the process. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, this is manual mode and auto set mode. So what I just basically explained to you was if you wanted to do manual mode where you select the actual process yourself. So if I turn this around, I'm going to close this door. We'll flip that back on. What you're looking at here is the front of the machine. We've got it all hooked up. You've got electrode positive just here. Your ground is negative, of course. We're just gonna hang this to the side out of the way. And what you're looking at, it's already set. Now this is just because we were using earlier, but it's got your material thickness I can change by the push of a button. So there I am, 14 gauge. It automatically, if you didn't notice that, when I change the material thickness, watch the wire feed change. So when I go to 1/8, it changes my voltage. So we're gonna change this to 030 wire, and we're gonna say 14 gauge. Now, if you wanted to have this automatically do it for you, you see how these lights are illuminated here? It's on MIG steel already. Well, that's because I want to do it manually. You can change the process. You watch all your lights change, and then it'll walk you through making sure you had everything correct. So we're on that, we're 75-25. Well, if I push auto, 030, 14 gauge, it's automatically gonna tell me my range. And if I turn that to the center, that's exactly where, I think pretty much where we were supposed to be. So if I go back to 030, 14 gauge, if I go back in here and look up 030, 14 gauge, 15.9, 272. There you go. 15.9 volts, 272 on the wire feed speed. So this is, like I said, a baseline. This is where you start. You may have to go up, you may have to go down, depending on, if the metal's clean, if it's not, if it's temperature, a lot of variables there. But this, to simplify it, to make it easy, this is a starting point. So it's exactly what I said in the explanation of this graph on the inside of the machine. And so that's what you've got. So you've basically, when you turn this, if you see that just above the 16 there's a little white piece. Well, if you turn it to 15.9, there's a bullseye. So that's exactly where they want you to start. Now, can I vary that? Yes, I can go all the way to 16.7, or I can go all the way down to 15.1. Same thing on the wire speed. I can adjust that. That's my range in which they recommend you to use it if you're at 030 wire on 14 gauge material. So I can go from 258 to 285. Now, if you get into some material and it's 14 gauge, but for some reason it's a lot of material there or whatever, and you're not getting enough heat, you can't, 285 is not working, you can always bump that up to the next material, and it gets you to a different range to where you can adjust. Your top range at that 14 gauge material was 16.7. So if I flip that over to 1/8 inch, then it gives me a range of 16.8 all the way up to 18.6. So that's just something, like I said, you're 14 gauge, so it gives you a starting point. If you're at the bullseye, the middle of that range, you're at 15.9 and 272. That's going to be the exact same whether I go to 1/8 inch, if I'm at 3/16. Their recommended settings, if you're on that bullseye, is 18.6 and 284 for the wire speed if you're on 3/16 material. So I'm not going to explain any more on that because it's exactly the same no matter which thickness material you go to. It's gonna stay the same. It's gonna recommend, but that's on the auto set mode. If you want to do manual, you can do that as well, and you can just adjust it. You can set, whatever thickness material. But if you do auto set, it's going to tell you, what. That's on manual mode there. So I can just run it manual. You see your lights aren't lit up here. But if I go auto, your light's up. You need to select your wire speed and your material thickness. And then, like I said, that gives you a really good baseline to get started. Okay guys, well, that finishes up this video. I didn't get into any welding. That'll be next. So stay tuned. We're gonna start some basic welding videos, starting out from absolutely bare bones, T-joints, lap joints, the simplest, just running beads. And I'm gonna show you exactly how to start that process, how to get a little manipulation in your weld or actual movement, making some circles, some half moons, whatever the case may be. But teach you some of that stuff. But I just want to show you how to set up a welder when it comes out of the box, put your wire on, put your tips on, your nozzles. That's exactly how it comes in the box. So it's very simple. There's nothing else to it. It comes in a box just like that with a book. And then of course, I think you actually get a regulator with this machine. This is a really good machine. We use it, like I said, for a lot of we do use it here in the shop. That's why it's got the large tank on it. We also have a small tank that we run when we take it out on site. We use it for a lot of handrail repairs, small stuff, on apartment complexes where we go. And it's a great machine. The biggest thing about this, it runs on 110 and 220. So if you've got a garage at home, you don't have 220, you can get this machine and you can run it on 110. And if you want to upgrade, or maybe you move and get a shop or something, you can run it on that 220. So you don't have to upgrade to a bigger welder, but it allows you to do some sheet metal, some minor stuff up to 3/16 or quarter. And then if you step up to the 220, you can run it all the way up to 3/8 material. Of course, you're probably going to be doing a multi-pass on that, but So I just want to show you how to set it up, how to put your regulator on, and how to set your regulator. That's a huge step. Once you get that going, then it's just a matter of getting some scrap metal. Don't buy, really good new stuff. Try to find scrap stuff. It's pretty easy to come across. Make sure it's clean to start with, and you can get some really good practice. But that'll get you going. If you got any questions, please feel free to ask, comment. You can email me, and be on the lookout for some cool videos coming up, step-by-step process of how to weld. We're going to do some MIG, and then hopefully get into some TIG and some stick. So if you haven't already, subscribe, follow us, and we'll see you on the next video.